Joining me here on the chancel steps are two folks I hope you already know. Heather Mustain is our Minister of Missions, and Samira Izadi Page is a former member here at Wilshire and one of our dear friends who is the director of a refugee ministry here called Gateway of Grace. That's one of our mission partners. And Samira and Heather are among 8 folks who with Wilshire Connections, who have just returned from 10 days in Barcelona, Spain, on a different kind of mission trip. Now, typically, when we think about a mission trip, we think about going someplace to do something to help someone else, and then coming back having accomplished a task. This is not that kind of mission trip. In fact, we think it may be a prototype of a new kind of mission engagement that we'd like to talk about. So, Heather, this is called Pivot. And what is a Pivot mission trip? What's different about this?
Sure. So Pivot is a material that has recently been published by the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. It's a leadership development training resource. It has 3 components or 3 phases. So you have the preparation phase, you have an on-site engagement phase, and then you have a pivoting back home phase. So 8 of us have been working over the course of the last 6 months preparing for our 10-day on-site engagement phase with CBF field personnel in Barcelona. We have been reading and discussing basic missiology and poverty alleviation methodology and having very rich discussions around that. And now that we're home, we're looking to implement what God has shown us or taught us into our own everyday context of life.
Okay, so that is a different kind of experience. Samira, I know that one of the questions you guys dealt with every day was asking, what are you seeing, where are you seeing God at work in the world today? What is God saying to me today from what I've seen? From any day on the trip or the trip in general, what did you see? What a new awareness came to you through God's presence?
So we were a diverse group of people, and I think our learnings were different. So I looked at it from a very specific lens, and for me, it was how God was using the immigrant and refugees in Spain to revive the church. Many of us think of Spain as a Catholic country, as a Christian country, but Spain is one of the most atheist countries in the world, and I didn't know that. And we met with 2 brother-in-laws who were married to 2 sisters. One of them was an immigrant Christian, and the other one was an atheist before meeting the brother-in-law. And through the witness of the brother-in-law, he came to faith, and now he's engaged in evangelistic ministry. So what I learned was that God is using the immigrants and the refugees in Spain to lift up his praises again and to renew his spirit in Spain again. Spanish people are very good people, and they're doing amazing work regarding refugees and ministries, and God is using the refugees and immigrants to also impact them.
So, Heather, why Barcelona? What's the connection for us there, and why is this a place to go learn?
So a couple different things. Barcelona, we have field personnel through the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship that have been appointed to a small city outside of Barcelona called Sant Cugat. And so one of the reasons is to connect the pivot material, which they actually wrote, with their ministry in Sant Cugat. The other reason is this community is actually the #1 place to raise a family in Spain. So it's not unlike our own context here in Dallas, and so it was very relatable to transfer principles and impact that we were seeing in their ministry to our own context as well.
Very good. So, Samira, you work with refugees from all around the world who come to Dallas. Why did you need to go to Spain to experience another side of refugee ministry there? And what's the pivot coming back here for you and for us?
It was good for me to see how God is using refugee and immigrants in other parts of the world to do something different. You know, we tend to think of refugees as people that we need to minister to, and that had been, for the most part, my experience, you know, or my thought. Even though I have been changed by refugees and immigrants on regular basis. So the learning that I'm going to implement here and be more intentional about communicating is that refugees are here, and when we minister to them, we are the ones also who are being ministered to. It reminds me of Matthew 25, when Jesus says that when you reach out to the least of these, you have reached out to me. And you see, in that encounter with the refugees and the immigrants, when we see the image of God in those people, when we encounter the presence of God, when we touch the holy in that encounter, we are the ones who are being changed. And that is something that I want to be more intentional in communicating with our congregations as I go around and talk to churches.
Samira, while you still have the microphone, one last question. You and I talked the other day about the current influx of Syrian refugees now into Dallas. And I know folks would love to hear from you while you're here. What's going on with that, and what are the needs that you have that we might connect with?
Thank you for that question. So we are getting a lot of Syrian refugees, several families per week. If you're passionate about Syrian refugees, a year and a half ago, when that was in the news, they are coming now, and we need your support now. These are amazing, brave people, and they have stories that just touches, those stories, they just touch your heart, and they change how you view the world. We have Syrian refugees who have come to faith in refugee camps. We have Syrian refugees who are extremely kind and generous, even though they have nothing. So we need to be able to love them and to minister to them. They have different needs, but also many opportunities for us to grow together in ministry. So if you are interested in a transformative relationship, both in your life and in the lives of the refugees, I would love to hear from you.
Very good. Well, Samira will be here through the service, and you could connect with her, and always with Heather. Heather, this last question, how does this maybe foretell the future of where we're headed in global missions as a congregation and as a fellowship?
Sure. Pivot kind of naturally challenges the typical short-term mission model, which really requires little preparation, short periods of service that research has actually shown has some limited impact. And so the pivot material, with the crux of transformation really occurring in people's lives upon returning and having that long-lasting follow-up and fellowship with one another, the hope is that we will begin to see and demonstrate more impact in which we engage in global missions.
Wonderful. Thank you both. And if you'd like to talk to either Heather or Samira more about this, they'll be here at the end of the service. Please come up and have a good conversation. Thanks.